All right, well, you're watching this because you probably watched part 1 of 6 wrong reasons to be in Christian music. So this is now part 2, and we're going to continue with the next 3 wrong reasons for being in Christian music. Reason number 4, you will make lots of money in Christian music. Just like with fame, there are very few people that make a lot of money in Christian music. Yes, you can do well financially if you've carved out a specific niche for yourself in the genre. You can, if you give and serve your fans for a long time, you can have a long and rewarding career in Christian music. You don't have to become ultra famous or ultra popular to make a good living at it and provide well for your family. It does take a lot of hard work, perseverance, and a good team of people around you to be successful doing it full time. But money shouldn't be your main motivation. Yes, we depend on income to continue doing what we're doing. It takes money to put artists on tour, record music, buy gear and equipment, and to market and promote music. But even if you are only in it for the ministry, it still takes money to do ministry. So how do you still do ministry without selling your soul to the god of money? Well, part of the challenge is that in Christian music there is less money to go around. And in most cases, it costs just as much to put an artist or band on tour as a mainstream artist. But the return is usually far less. On the blog, on themusiccoaches.com, I read an excerpt of a recent article from BeliefNet.com where then Gospel Music Association President John Still was interviewed. And what he talks about, you get a really good idea of what it is that I'm talking about regarding money and Christian music. So here's what he says. Artists on tour are expected to deliver a high level of production to an audience that is not willing to pay ticket prices that approximate those for shows in other genres with similar levels of production. For example, Madonna's upcoming show at Madison Square Garden lists ticket prices from $64.50 to $354.50. Believe it or not, people do pay that much to see mainstream artists. Tickets for the upcoming Jonas Brothers show at the San Diego Sports Arena are a much more reasonable $40 to $80. Well, that's comparable to tickets for Christian music's hottest act at that time, Casting Crowns. They had an upcoming show at the Christian Heritage Church in Tallahassee, Florida. And tickets there ranged from $25 to $60. The difference, the San Diego Sports Arena seats a lot more people than the Christian Heritage Church. More tickets sold means more income generated, which covers more of the bells and whistles needed to put on a first-class show. The problem, Still explains, is transportation, sound, lights, etc. cost the same. And that's why margins are pinched. Now, with the extremely high cost of fuel, it's even more economically challenging for gospel artists. And don't forget that artists like Casting Crowns also do ministry shows. The band is also playing a show in October in Mississippi where tickets are just $10 to $15. John says, I can't remember the last time Madonna played a show where tickets were $10. Gas costs for Jonas Brothers or Madonna tour bus costs much the same amount as a Casting Crowns tour bus. But at the end of the trip, the mainstream artists have more money to cover those costs. So that gives you an idea of what we're up against as far as money and how there's much less of it to go around. So there's kind of a scarcity mentality that can happen there. So that's it on money. Wrong reason number 5 for being in Christian music. It will be just like church, almost like heaven. Everyone is nice, serves one another, and loves one another. Well, this is a misconception I made when entering my first job in the Christian music industry at age 24. I actually thought people in Christian music would be a lot like church. After all, they all went to church. Some of them went to the same church as me. I was young and naive. I had just accepted Christ into my heart 1 year earlier and was very much on fire for God. Well, I was in for a rude awakening. It wasn't like church. Christian music was and still is a business first. And sometimes you can be incredibly disappointed in the actions of the people in it. It isn't Disney's Magic Kingdom, in other words. Christian music works in much the same way as the pop, country, or rock music industries. The only thing that's different, or one of the main things that's different, is that it's harder to know who you can trust in Christian music sometimes. There's a thick layer of religiosity that covers almost everything. Sometimes we play church, sometimes we play major record label, or something in between. I honestly don't think that we in Christian music are any worse or better than than mainstream music people. It's just that it gets complicated when you mix a Christian environment and business, especially Christianity and music business. It's an entertainment business, after all, and the systems are structured very similar to mainstream music. So if you combine that with the fact that it's harder to become famous, harder to make money, and harder to find true happiness, if you try to find it in worldly things, you can truly get lost in all the confusion and quickly become discouraged by the industry. You know, I'm grateful I was able to get a good perspective on it early from mentors and people I found I could trust. Wrong reason number 6. You intend to use Christian music as a stepping stone to eventually do mainstream music. Some people think Christian music is an easier path than making it big in mainstream music. You know, that may be true and it may not. It depends on how you look at it. You know, if you have no interest in ministering to people or just even a minimal interest in ministering to people, if that's not your main purpose, you know, the chances are you're going to be miserable in Christian music. If you're not ready to play in front of small crowds for very little money, traveling in stinky vans, staying in strangers' homes that the church set you up with, maybe taking a back seat to the pastor who's really going to be the one that gives the message for the night, then, you know, you're going to be miserable singing Christian music. Or, you know, some people in the same vein think that they're not talented enough to make it in mainstream, maybe even subconsciously. So surely the Christian music industry will take you. You know, it's sort of a fallback because you couldn't make it yet in mainstream. You know, hear me loud and clear. We don't need or want unmotivated, semi-talented people writing, producing, playing, and singing in our industry. We just don't need it. You know, doing Christian music well takes hard work, talent, perseverance, relentlessness, and purpose. It takes a calling from God to do this well. You face a ton of rejection and even spiritual warfare when you're doing Christian music. To be quote-unquote successful in our industry takes a lot of faith, strong faith. You have to know that you are supposed to be doing it. So those are my 6 reasons. If you've watched the previous one and this one, thanks for listening. You know, you may think you may now think, well, that's completely ruined it for me in Christian music. I hope not. You know, I want to focus on the next vlog that I post on the right reasons for making Christian music. You know, I might have seemed negative in this vlog, but I'm actually very much pro Christian music industry. My wife and I make a living at it together. We love the people we work with, all around the world that we work with. Some absolutely amazing people and partners that we depend on to make a living in this industry. But my point with this post is that just because you are a Christian who has gone to church all his or her life, you love to be in the spotlight, or you were born to be on the stage, and you see some people making good money in it, and maybe you're getting, you know, a lot of people think you should do it in your church or in your family, and they might be pushing you to do it, maybe even guilting you into it. That doesn't mean you should be making Christian music. You have to have a calling and a deep purpose. And that's what I'm going to cover in my next post, how to be in Christian music without selling your soul. Stay tuned for that. I'm Eric with themusiccoaches.com.